Ah, 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 ah. Welcome back to Rocker's Beer Review. Today we're going to be doing a Halloween special video. Yes, it's Halloween, so what can we do which is more Halloween than Halloween itself? Helloween, the heavy metal band from Germany, the second best band from Germany, after the Scorpions of course, but today Helloween are top of the list in terms of their albums. 16 studio albums, and we're going to be doing a ranking from 16 to 1. And I want to know which one is your favourite. Let me know in the comments. But without further ado, let's get ready to power metal. So, number 16. With all the albums that Helloween have got, you know, there's some that really jump out at you straight away, but there's a lot of others that are a little bit lost in the mix. And I'll be honest that apart from this year when the new Helloween album came out with Michael Kiske back in the fold, I haven't really listened to that much Helloween since '98. So I dip in and out of those albums. So for this video, I've actually gone through, listened to all those albums multiple times and really, you know, immersed myself in Helloween music for the last sort of couple of weeks, just so I can give you a real accurate sort of opinion in terms of the ranking. So number 16, the album that probably wasn't necessarily bad, but there was nothing really jumped out, and that's My God-Given Right. So as I said, I think this is their last album before Michael Kiske and Kai Hansen came back. So it's a little bit generic. It's a little bit, nothing jumps out really. And I think, you know, without the return of those two guys, those key members of Helloween, I think that, you know, it could have been the end of the band really. So it's My God-Given Right makes 16th position. In 15th position, I'm giving Seven Sinners. Now, this is when they sort of changed to a very much heavier, more crunchier sound. And for me, it doesn't fit as well. It's almost got a slightly sort of industrial sound to it. And it sort of loses a lot of the catchy melodies. I mean, if I'm going to pick out a song that sort of stood out for me, it would be If a Mountain Could Talk. It's probably the best song on the album. So Seven Sinners for me makes 15th position. In 14th position, Rabbit Don't Come Easy. You know, there's some strong melodies and really catchy chorus, but again, nothing really jumps out. This was the first album with Sasha Gerstner, but he replaced Roland Grappo on this album. And his guitar playing is really good, but songwriting-wise, nothing really jumps out for me. So Rabbit Don't Come Easy, number 14. In 13th position, probably the one album from, you know, in the last sort of 20 years that I actually owned, I had it on CD, didn't listen to it that much, but this is the Keeper of the Seven Keys Legacy. You know, could this be Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 3 and up there with those classic Keeper albums? Well, unfortunately not. Those the 14-minute opener, King for 1,000 Years, is a great Helloween song though. It's up there with their classic epics. And Invisible Man, Born on Judgment Day, you know, they're okay if a little still generic. Nothing really sort of jumps out as being different. I do like Pleasure Drone. I think that's one of the better songs on the album. But then after that, it all sort of goes a bit samey, really. I mean, this is an album that was released as a 2 CD package, a double album. And the first disc is definitely the better of the two. But I'm putting Keeper of the Seven Keys Legacy in 13th position. In 12th position, could be a surprise to a lot of big Helloween fans out there, I'm putting Walls of Jericho. Now, you know, the songs like Ride the Sky and How Many Tears are classic Helloween songs and the songs that you want to hear and play live. But, you know, for me, this album is sort of a little bit it's too speed metal. And Kai Hansen, I never could really get my head around his very raspy singing when he was the singer on this band. So I'm putting Walls of Jericho in 12th position. In 11th position, Gambling with the Devil. There's nothing wrong, but there's just a bit more average on this album than good. Kill It is really heavy, you know, and a little bit creepy. It reminds me a little bit of the sort of things that King Diamond do. Even the guitar playing sounds a little bit like Andy De La Rocque, who's the guitarist of King Diamond. As Long as I Fall, though, is a really great, catchy song with with that slight horror vibe in it. You know, it's almost like across the whole of this album, there's a very sort of horror sort of feeling about it. And Final Fortune is also good with a real catchy sing along. For me, though, the standout track from this album is Fallen to Pieces. I think it's a really good track. So it's a good album, Gambling with the Devil. And I think, you know, if you're new to Helloween, it's a good starting point in their newer album. So, but my list, it only makes number 11. In 10th place is Straight Out of Hell. Now, when I first heard the opening track on this album, Namatea, I think it's probably one of the best modern Helloween songs. You know, it's probably my top 5 Helloween songs. It's an absolutely great song. But unfortunately, after that, I think the standard dips a little bit. I mean, Live Now is really heavy, but also catchy in equal measures. Burning Sun, Church Breaks Down are very good. But there's, again, a lot of generic stuff. But for me, I still think that for that first song alone, you should definitely give it a listen. So number 10, Straight Out of Hell. In 9th position is The Dark Ride. You know, this is a much darker and, again, a heavier album with a sort of slower vibe. But I love Mr. Torture. Mirror Mirror is a real slow burn. Reminds me a little bit of early sort of Sabotage. And If I Could Fly is a really catchy sing-along anthem. The title track, The Dark Ride itself, I think it's a classic Helloween song. And, again, one of the highlights. But I'm putting Dark Ride in 9th position. In 8th position, Better Than Raw. Now, as I mentioned, I only really dipped in and out of the albums. I haven't really given them a full listen, you know, over the last 20 years. I've listened to more Helloween in the last 2 weeks than I probably have in the last 20 years. But the one album that really sort of jumped out from those sort of newer 98 to present day sort of albums was Better Than Raw, so it makes my 8th position. You know, it's got some really heavy and amazing vocal acrobatics on the first sort of song, Push, but also some really catchy anthems like Falling Higher, Hey Lord, and I Can. It's probably one of the best songs on the album. For me, though, is probably Midnight Sun. It's a really good album, and again, this album was really sort of jumped out for me in the new stuff. So if you haven't heard Helloween since those Keeper albums, there's another good album to start with. In 7th position is Master of the Rings. Now, this was the first album after Michael Kiske left and Andy Darris joined. For fans wanting a return to those Keeper albums, it wasn't quite there. It wasn't suddenly Keeper free. You know, it was still a lot of way off from sounding like that classic power metal sound. For me, it almost sounds like they're almost like a heavier Scorpions, which again is no bad thing. And the songs are catchy, but I don't think they're as hard hitting as some of those sort of the sort of earlier stuff, and even certain stuff that's come subsequent to that. But the songs are good. So things like Where the Rain Goes, Perfect Gentleman, and the very sort of Van Halen-esque Take Me Home, they're the real highlights. It's a good album, but it's not as heavy or as fast paced as a lot of the Helloween stuff. In 6th position, this is where you're going to be quite surprised, I think. Comedian. Now, many people may wonder why this very often despised album has made it high as 6. You know, when I look at other rankings for Helloween, it's usually in last position. But I quite like it. Yes, it's a million miles away from their sort of traditional power metal, certainly their Keeper albums. But there's some really good songs, well-crafted songs on here. And Michael Kiske sings absolutely superb on this. So, First Time, I really like. Music, I really like. Step Out of Hell. They're really good hard rock songs, and for me, one of my favourite Helloween songs, Giants. I think this is an absolute stunning masterpiece of a song. So it's a really good. Yes, there's some really poor tracks on it. I mean, Windmill and In the Night are probably the worst Helloween songs ever written. But I think Comedian deserves more, and you know, you've got to appreciate the fact that they did something a bit different. They went a bit. Well, they just literally went into all different styles and threw it all into the mix and see what hit. And there's a lot of, you know, as much as there's some big hits, there's also some big misses as well on this album. But I still like it. And Comedian is probably one of those sort of albums that I listen to more from Helloween now. And I think it stands up pretty well. So 6th position for Comedian. I'm sure there'll be a lot of hate for that out there. In fifth position, Time of the Oath. Now, after Master of the Rings didn't really sort of bring back the power metal, this is Andy Derris's second album with Helloween, and it's much heavier and faster with key tracks like the opener We Burn, the very sort of Judas Priest, almost homage, Still Tormentor, and the very catchy live favourite Power. It's a really good album, this Time of the Oath, and it's definitely worth your listen, and it makes fifth position for me in my rankings. In fourth position, another album which I don't think, a lot of people would put very high up, but that's Pink Bubbles Go Ape. After the Keeper albums, they had there was a big delay until they had problems with their record company, and there was a while Kai Hansen left, and there was a while before this Pink Bubbles Go Ape came up. Again, less speed metal than the Keeper albums, but it's chock full of really good tracks. Kids of the Century, Back on the Streets, The Chance, Someone's Crying. They're big, heavy hitting songs. Less said about things like Heavy Metal Hamsters. I think Helloween have always wanted to put a little sort of comedy track into every album they've done, and that's Heavy Metal Hamsters is a bit of a strange one, but it's a bit of fun. It's a good album, this Pink Bubbles Go Ape, and I think, again, if you listen to it back now, you'd probably appreciate it more than you did when it came out. In number 3, and I think I'm going controversial again here, because I'm putting Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 2 in third position. A lot of people will put this as their number 1 album. Eagle Fly Free is a brilliant song. I Want Out is a brilliant song. March of Time is a massive, heavy metal, speed, power metal anthem. And the title track itself, 7, is an absolute tour de force in terms of an epic track. But I think, for me, what lowers this album down is I don't really like those I don't like the Helloween comedy stuff. I don't like Rise and Fall, and I don't like Dr. Steen. I think that they don't do anything for me. And I think there's a couple of other weaker songs like We Got the Right and You Always Walk Alone. So that's why I can only put this album in third position. So Keeper 2, it's in third. So in second position, I'm putting Helloween, their self-titled album that came out this year, 2021. Wow, what a comeback album. It's up there with probably one of the best albums of the year, certainly in terms of heavy metal. It definitely is. Lots of great tracks, but for me, the standout is still the 12 minutes epic song, Skyfall. And it really works. The two vocalists, you think, it could be a bit of a mess here, but it really, really works. And it's got me appreciating Andy Derris's vocals, because he's such difference to sort of Michael Kiskay's voice, but when they work together, I think the sum of the parts is much greater. It's a really, really good combination. The guitars are great. The drumming is really good on this album, and as I say, it's chock full of really good songs. There's not really, it's difficult to pick out a bad song on here, because I think all of them are really good. But as I said, I think the Skyfall is certainly up there as one of the best tracks. But I also like Angels, I like Mass Pollution, and I like Best Times as well. I think they're really good songs. So Helloween 2021 makes second position. And the top album by Helloween, for me, has to be Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 1. It's all killer and no filler, and that's always what I need when I'm rating my albums. Just take the title, the song, the epic song, Helloween. It's a great song. Every year at this time, the 31st of October, I listen to that, and I think this is still an amazing song. A real brilliant epic song with lots of twists and turns and brilliant guitar playing, amazing vocals. But every song on this album, it's quite short, but every song is really good. From the opener, I've completely forgot, I'm Alive, to A Little Time, Twilight of the Gods, probably their best ballad they've ever written, A Tale That Wasn't Right. Then you got Future World, and then the Helloween itself. It's a brilliant album. It would be better if there was a couple of more good songs on it. If you put I Want Out and March of Time, for example, on it, then it would be an even better album. But I think that's the thing with this album. There's a lot more Kai Hansen pen tracks on this, where Keeper 2, I think there's a lot more Michael Weikap's pen tracks. And I think that's why it's better. For me, the ultimate Helloween album has to be Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 1, which, here's the cover of it. So I hope you've enjoyed this ranking on this special day on Helloween. It's Helloween, but it's Helloween. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Let me know what your favourite Helloween album is. What's your favourite tracks? Am I talking absolute rubbish, putting Pink Bubbles Go Ape and Chameleons so high up? Let me know in the comments. I'd really like to know what you think about Helloween. And what do you think going forward Helloween are going to do? You know, I'm hoping there's going to be more music from them with this sort of ultimate lineup, because I think this album's really good. Where they can go from here, you know, if they can go a bit better the next time, then it will probably, you know, could it be the best album they've ever done? Hope you've enjoyed this. And until you next see me on this spooky day, keep on